And we are live. Hi, Kevin. Hi, Looks and Friends. On Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're joining us from. We should be live now. Kevin, would you like to do a little welcome?
Yeah.
Get us started here.
Welcome to this live lunch and learn. Bring your own lunch. I'm Kevin Woods, and this is my lovely wife and business partner, Tiffany. And we're just so thrilled to be here today. And it's such a blessing to get to spend this time doing this, talking about business strategy, decision making, and just being here with you. And what you got, Tiffany?
Absolutely. So, Tiffany Woods here. I currently and have for the last dozen or so years worked for a large industrial contractor, and I've learned a lot in those 12 years, and have
She knows
really,
a lot. She really does.
About I know a little bit about a lot of things, and I do though have a passion for small businesses and seeing them succeed, and so I'm really thinking for this new venture, for those of you joining us, we are Your Consulting LLC, is that we can take a lot of the things that we've learned out in big business and help small businesses to be successful with those same kind of strategies and just adapt them to your business. And so we'll get started here, I think, with a few statistics. I know we said that we weren't going to get lost in the numbers, but we have to get lost just for, well, maybe we'll stay on the path. This is going to be our GPS for the rest of our Google or Apple Maps for the rest of the event.
I will say, let me say, we got a couple of silly slides. Don't lose us on those. It's just to break up any potential monotony. This is our first time doing this presentation, our first time doing this live in this exact way. And we're going to be doing this every 2 to 4 weeks. Just stay tuned. If you happen to get something out of this at the end, and hang around to the end, we're going to respect your time too, and try to make some really good, tie some loose ends that might be there in your mind, hopefully. What was I going to say? I didn't script this. So anyways, hang in there, and we'll get through this presentation and have a little fun along the way. And Tiffany, definitely, she has a pretty thorough background in accounting and finance. And so my job here is to mainly rein in her genius and to put it into words that I can understand. And that will translate to, because we're all at different levels of things. But our main mission and goal with Your Consulting LLC is to be able to take the numbers and your goals, put it into clear actions, and present that to you and work with you to reach those goals. And we're going to talk more about that right now and what that entails. I'm going to turn it over to Tiffany.
Awesome. And if you kind of see me glancing up to the side, I'll just give you a heads up. We're trying to watch the comments and see how the setup goes. We want to talk directly with you, though, and to hear from you. And so we have the comments pulled up over here to make sure that we answer or address anything that you have to say. We would absolutely appreciate your insight into any of these topics as we touch on something. That's what I'm looking at
down here.
Yes, yeah. So if we look away, just know it's because we're trying to gauge your input and incorporate that as much as we can to the conversation. So that's what that's about. But for now, let's go ahead and jump into some of those numbers I mentioned. Our job here is going to be to translate those numbers, tell you what they mean to you. And so I'm going to get Kevin, if you would, to jot them down on the board, and so we can have a reference back to them throughout our conversation here. And
let's go with red, since it's kind of, let's go with this.
Can you jot those down and also work our click on our little slideshow right there.
We ready for the slideshow?
Yes.
All right, let's do this.
So that'll be up. Hopefully you can see that on your screen. And then we'll also be talking to you here. So did you know, you might have heard these before, you might not have, but did you know that more than 99%, I mean, it's something like 99.9% of all businesses in the United States are considered small businesses, and that's by the Small Business Administration standards, and that's based on employee count. It's based on annual revenues, but 99.9%. It's a mind-blowing number of all businesses are considered small businesses. And 98% of all businesses have less than 20 employees. So I can say that's how our business is. Probably many of you listening in or watching us are in that category of owning, operating, leading, managing a business that has less than 20 employees. So you fall into that 98% of all businesses having fewer than 20 employees. So that's a huge number. That's a lot of business. I mean, you think about it, that's a lot of businesses out there. Well, let me tell you something that's also mind-blowing, but in a negative way. Another number is, did you know that 50% of those small businesses, thinking about how many businesses there are out there, and half of them within 5 years of startup will fail. If you want to click on the next screen there.
Let's go to the next screen. Yes.
Just to give a visible or a visual representation of this. Of those 10 business owners, within 5 years, half of those won't be in business anymore. Okay.
This is wild.
You think that's a bad number? Well, look.
I really do.
10 years later, 3 more will have failed. At least 80% of small businesses by year 10 will have failed.
It just keeps getting worse. I'm not even gonna.
Getting worse.
Yeah, I don't even know what to
say. So it goes downhill from there. So think about all the small businesses that you know, maybe your own small business. I hope that you have seen your 10th birthday. And I know we all, if we haven't reached that point yet, we want to see 10 years in business and more.
Yeah.
And so to think that 80% of businesses fail within 10 years is and of all the small businesses, it is just
so
really.
We need to be paying extra close attention to ourselves, to what we say today too, as well, because we haven't been in this business.
You're right. You're right. So everything that we're going to say today applies to us too. So.
And like she said, did you tell them that even if I was thinking about something else, even if you've made 10 years, there's still a chance that you're missing out on a lot of revenue and profit if you're not doing some of these things we're going to talk about. They say 20 to 30% revenue opportunity cost, or is that proper use of that? Or if you're not applying these, we'll try to stay away from jargon without explaining it, but you're losing out. So let's just let's stay on track here. What's next, Tiffany?
So Kevin, do you know, and maybe our listeners?
Well, I'm curious why all of these businesses are failing.
Well, that might be a question. I'm kind of curious if you're joining us today, if you want to drop in the chat what you think is the cause of those failures. It is a tremendous number of businesses that fail. And so I'm going to give a couple of seconds for our listeners to drop a note in the chat before we just give it away.
And there's probably, a few different reasons, but there's one when I was researching this too a while back. There's one overarching, it encompasses a lot of finer details, but go ahead and tell us what that overarching reason for failure is.
Well, if you guessed cash flow issues, then you guessed right. I mean, the bottom line really is the bottom line, Kevin.
There's only one thing that's absolutely required for a business to stay in business and for an extended period of time and not run out of cash is
cash.
Have a healthy cash flow. Did I give it away?
It
really is. Of course, your customers are the most important thing, technically. But really, when it comes down to the bottom line, it's the bottom line for a reason, right? I mean,
that's right. And poor customer service or faulty or bad products and services, those will
contribute directly to
will leave you. If you're not taking care of your customers, they're not going to buy from you. So
the cash doesn't fall out of the sky, of course. So we understand there's reasons, but we're trying to get to the root of the issue and try to head that off. And that's what these decision-making processes are about. And
absolutely.
I'll try to turn it over to the specialist here.
Now, the only way, like you said, for a small business or any business in general to stay in business is to have consistent positive cash flow. That's the money in the bank. We can't be
unless
in
you
the
have a
negative.
really rich uncle or something that doesn't mind continuing to fund your
right. But
hobbies.
eventually he will. I mean,
Disown you. Okay.
unless he's doing all these wonderful strategies and he has a tremendous positive cash
I got to
flow.
stay
and
off of
has been-
tangents. I like to have fun, but let's respect their time and keep going.
Well,
I'm gonna
sure.
hush.
So the only way, like we said, basically money in the bank. You may be making sales. You could have revenue and even profit on paper, if you can believe that, and still have negative cash flow, and your business can be struggling. So, like you mentioned, even businesses that are surviving may not be thriving, is a way to look at that. They may be leaving money on the table. You may not be able to reach your goals, the goals you have for yourself, for your life, and for your business, if you are merely surviving.
So you could still be profiting and not even
On
know
paper.
what you're, and on paper,
Mm-hmm.
and not even know what you're missing out on potentially.
Sure.
Or you could be profiting and, worse yet, have negative cash flow. Right.
Sure, in a given period, right?
Okay.
If you're
Just
there
making
could
sure
be lots
that
of different
we're all
reasons,
on the same page there. So
but you may show a profit on paper, but your
why is the
customers
bank
aren't
account
paying.
zero?
Right,
Yeah.
your customers aren't paying you, or you have some sort of hidden expenses or
A leaky
poor
boat.
bookkeeping for sure. There's a lot of ways you could think you're good on paper, and when you look at your financial statements and then you look at your bank account,
Why is it,
what in the
we're
world?
Making money, but doesn't look
our
like
daughter really loves this story. When we were kind of throwing around ideas for eye-catching videos, there was one script that we put together where it was a business owner of a cupcake shop, and she says, I sold 100 cupcakes and I'm still broke. And that is, she'll still, even to this day, that's been months ago, and even to this day, she still loves that particular little skit that we threw together. And so the truth is, you can be selling like cupcakes and
or hotcakes.
and still be broke. And so we have businesses like a couple of examples that we're gonna talk about here, and one of them, our example here, is Mark. Businesses like Mark's.
Silly graphic number one.
Mark owns a roofing business. Sales are up, customer reviews, they're excellent. And so his business looks successful from the outside. But every month he's chasing customer payments, delaying payments to his suppliers, and he's wondering why, despite all the revenue, his bank account doesn't reflect his success. Or there's Kara. Would you show us Kara?
Yes.
She knows she has a problem with her online jewelry business. She's tried everything. A new accounting software, hiring a part-time bookkeeper, even late nights poring over spreadsheet after spreadsheet after spreadsheet. She's stuck. She's working harder, not smarter. And all that financial stress is really impacting her sleep, her family, and her ability to innovate, to move her business forward. She knows there's a problem, but she doesn't know how to fix it. She feels powerless to fix it. Or Kevin, I think you have your own story where you were in a similar situation where the business, it seemed successful on a lot of fronts, but you were suffering from a negative cash flow.
Yeah, so I'll get candid with y'all for a minute here, and then we'll move on. But just so you understand a little bit of my background, because it's relevant to why I have a passion about this, why this is our mission. Of course, she has technical abilities to do this. She understands the numbers. This is her domain. But why should I be involved in this? Besides us being married, there's a lot of married couples that don't go into business together. So it's not just that. The reason that I care so much about this is because I have a personal story about being a small business owner and being on the side of the business owner that does not understand the numbers, that didn't understand how critical they were, that didn't understand the decision-making processes that needed to go into, trying to predict scenarios, to plan, to set goals. So I come from a music background, an education background, and my degree is in biology, totally different from this, right? But so I was teaching school and I had a passion for, this is random, a passion for making coffee. Okay, for real. And I wanted to serve people. I wanted to make coffee. I wanted to have some freedom and flexibility. And, we did soups and salads and sandwiches and things like that. Okay. It was really cool little coffee shop. I wasn't I wasn't paying attention to the numbers. I wasn't paying attention to really a lot of the things that I now know I needed to be paying attention to. I was paying attention to making the best coffee I can make, right? As you can maybe relate, doing the best roofing you can do, or the best financial services you can do, or whatever your business is, the best music. We had some creatives that were in here. To come to this live. So I totally relate with all of that. However, just doing our technical work, serving our customers is not exactly enough to be able to serve those customers for the long term. When the money runs out, then it becomes a hobby. Okay. And, if you're just going to do a hobby, you can do your hobby, but you're meaning for this to be a business, right? That you're in a business actually needs to generate income to support you, to support your family. And that's where I went wrong. So I had to eventually close down the coffee shop, and then go, make some other decisions. I'm not going to tell you my life story right now. We can get into that later, but make some other decisions for earning income. And it's really because I didn't pay attention to these decision-making strategies. I ignored my numbers. I knew what was coming in the register. Yes. I knew what I was spending. I kept my receipts. I did the basics. I paid my taxes. I was licensed, all these things, but there's more to it than that. There's more to it
You
than
weren't
that.
strategic
I
necessarily.
wasn't strategic about it and
or
forward
prepared.
thinking.
Sure, prepared. Forecasting and.
I was doing
yeah.
basically, well, not to the level of a bookkeeper, but I was basically doing my bookkeeping, my accounting type
balancing
stuff,
your checkbook.
balancing,
Sure.
looking at right now and in the reverse. But what we're talking about is the vision, the mission, the goals, the strategies for the future of your business, because that's how the Fortune 500 CEOs do it. And that's what we put in our title for a reason. Nothing special per se about them, except they're consistent, they're disciplined, they're resolved, and they continue to think forward thinking, not getting so caught up in the minutia, and really not so concerned about some of the things that we would spend a lot of our time focusing on as small business owners. And so I'll turn it back over to Tiffany. I hope you can relate a little bit to that. Well, hopefully you can't relate to that because you've been paying attention to the right things. But if you can relate, then that's why I am so passionate about this right now, even though I'm not a financial technician. Back to her.
No, thank you for sharing that story, Kevin. I'm sure there
trying to
are
be vulnerable there.
Well, I'm sure there are a lot
difficult.
of folks who would say, "Well, yeah, I've been there, and maybe I managed to get out of there. Maybe I'm still living there. Maybe I learned the same kind of hard lessons and had to close a business, but now I'm looking to either restart it or try to go in a different direction." And so I can imagine that there are a lot of people. This is my first foray into owning a business, and so I definitely appreciate that experience that you bring
you've had
to this one.
You've had the privilege and insight of seeing how the larger businesses run,
Right.
And
That's
so
that's the other hand
where she can bring a lot to the table, even to those of you who are watching who are successful. There's still more that you can do, or have an advisor do for you. And we'll talk about that later, but don't just tune us out because, hey, I'm doing good. There's still something for you here.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, thank you. Yeah, I was thinking about a story you mentioned about, you were balancing your checkbook and basically, and not really
feel like a tightrope more than but anyways,
not really thinking about how the business works. You were like, well, when I do this, people like this kind of coffee, or when I do this is the response that I get. Or I know I only have $10 left in the bank, so I can't buy this or that at this moment. But
Not that I should have ignored those things. Those are important as well, but there's more to it than that, is what you're
Yes.
saying, right?
Yes.
I mean,
yeah. I was in the car with her daughter the other day, and she said she knew a secret about how cars worked. I don't know if she's told you the secret, or maybe she just told me, but I'm going to tell all of our friends here. So I was like, sure, I'd love to hear a secret from a 6-year-old on how cars work. And she said, when you're driving, if you lean back in the seat, the car will go faster.
You didn't know that?
I did not know that.
I thought everybody knew that.
Tried it, but she said it works in her, in her Jeep, which is, powered by a little battery. It actually, gets
I think the thing is, I tell her that when we're going downhill on the mountain bike, she has a shotgun seat, and so that we don't flip forward, and then you lean up when you're going uphill, and so that makes sense. So I get where she's coming from.
I mean, if it works in the battery-powered Jeep.
So how does this relate to what
and if it works on the bike, then it'll probably work in every situation, right? It must apply. So that's the secret. So next time if you drive in your car, next time lean back, see if it goes faster. But
how does this relate to what we're talking about, though?
Here's why.
I'm not with you.
A lot of business owners, like Mark and Kara that we talked about, or even like you when you were running your cafe, you manage your business this way. You don't know how it works. You're looking for a secret, the secret sauce, that's going to make it work. Maybe you heard about something your competitors are doing and that worked for them, and so you thought you might try it. Maybe you heard about something that worked for a big business, and you're like, well, I can just apply that here. Or maybe it worked for you last year, and so obviously it's going to keep working. You have this secret, but at the same time you're surviving barely, but you don't have a clear direction on where to go. You didn't know what to do next. You're just surviving day to day, getting the work done. Most small business owners, this is a very, very common situation where you feel stuck. And you're wearing every single hat in the business, or most of them anyway. And so every day you're so caught up in the minutia, the details, that you can't see, okay, what does everything that's happening, what does that mean for me? How can I make clear decisions? I have a clear direction to know where to go next to keep your business growing and successful. Is it just simply to lean back in the car and that'll make it go faster? Or really, what's the secret? So
you may be focusing on tactics or even some strategies, some particular things to do, but you don't send a ship out of port without knowing a destination. Okay. So otherwise, it's just a bunch of chance, and it's not really a good situation to be in. So
and even we went camping, and we had plans to go tubing, and so it was across town, and we followed the GPS, right? Because the GPS is saying this is the fastest way to get there, and it took us down this farm road, and I feel like all the tires are flat in the car now because it was gravel road, dust everywhere. We passed a truck driving bales of hay, that sort of thing, because that was a path. It was a path.
You made it though, right? Because you knew where you were going. That's the point. It will be a bumpy ride sometime. There's a lot in there. Yeah.
There might have been, absolutely. There might have been, a more ideal way to go. And if we could maybe have gotten advice on the fact or seen ahead that this road is going to be bumpy, we could have been prepared for it. More prepared for it instead of like, where are we going? And knowing we had a destination, it's the only thing that kept us on that bumpy road. So
that's a better analogy than you think.
Well,
there's a lot in there we could unpack. But let's
at the end of the day, you don't need any special secrets to drive the car. You don't even have to understand how the engine works. But you do need some training, some strategies to know, when to add fuel, when to check the oil, when to adjust your speed so you don't get a ticket, or so you're going fast enough to not be run over. So knowing certain things about how it works and knowing the destination absolutely can help you to make a plan to get there, to maintain and optimize your process getting there. So maybe you've been ignoring the warning lights on their dashboard. I don't know. You probably don't do that, when the little lights come up. But some folks have had check engine for the last 20 years and it's still running. So that's probably fine. And you may have been ignoring the warning lights on the dashboard of your business and your life. But I'm sure Mark and Kara and even Kevin would love relief from the stress and the anxiety that you experience with a struggling business.
All right, we got to get into the meat of things.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So, okay. So, well, I was going to mention that, that financial stress, it's just going to have a negative impact on your mental, physical health. We're going to skip ahead now.
Oh, yeah. Nothing exists in a vacuum here. This, the struggles that, the work-life balance thing that, now there's, I think Jeff Bezos has talked about it and other people, it's more like a circle because, how you come home from work affects your home life, or how you go to work affects your work. There's not really a balance as much as there is a circle. Nothing exists in a vacuum. So if you're struggling in mindset, mentally, of course, it's going to affect physical. It can affect spiritual, emotional, everything interacts. Okay. Of course. So your health, your wealth, your relationships, they all affect each other, right? So we understand that. We do understand that, and we take that into account when we're working with people. This is not in a vacuum. Your money is not in a vacuum. Okay, so let's just go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. We can circle back now to that first stat. So that's kind of just give you an idea of why it is so important to have an eye on those warning lights and what you can do, what are the top 1%. I say top 1%. It's really the less than 1% of large enterprises, what they're doing, how they manage those warning lights, because they're not perfect. I mean, you hear in the news about, what was it, Starbucks recently that's closing several of their stores. They're trying to optimize their business. They're going to maybe redesign, renovate some of their existing sites and closing down some of the other stores. You hear in the news about big businesses, large enterprises struggling. And they make adjustments. So how are they able to make those adjustments? What can we learn from how they handle the warning lights in their business, and how they're able to have growing and successful businesses, have positive cash flow on a regular basis? That what we can learn from them. How do they manage and steer their businesses to having consistent positive cash flow? And that resulting in success and growth for the businesses. And what can small business owners learn from successful large enterprises? And so if we think back to that first stat, it's less than 1% of all businesses that are not small. They're considered large enterprises. And at first glance, it would look like those businesses have a lot of advantages. We can't compete with Walmart and Amazon and Apple and all of those. But by understanding and adapting their strategies to your small business and leveraging your own competitive advantages, That's key. Have a growing and successful business. So what we're going to do now is talk about a few of those advantages, what they seem to be advantages of large enterprises, and how we can adapt those practically for your small business. And then we're going to have time. We're at 12:30 now. We'll definitely have time to hear from you. So let's work through these. The first one we'll talk about is financial strength and resources. That's probably the main thing when you look at large enterprises that you think about. Absolutely. You think about what they have as an advantage, and that's their financial strength and resources. So when you think about it, it seems like large enterprises have way more access to capital, and they benefit from something that we'll talk about real quick that's called economies of scale. So if you think about somebody like an Apple or a Walmart or an Amazon, if they need cash, they just go to the bank and borrow a substantial amount of cash. Or they could attract major investors, raise capital by issuing stock. There's so many options for a big business that a small business doesn't have or have as easily. And so they also operate at such a large scale. This is economies of scale. They benefit from lower average cost per unit. So they're able to make produce a lot more product or even provide a lot more service, whatever their business is, they benefit from, having a much lower cost for each of those items because they're able to negotiate lower prices from suppliers, and they've been able to streamline and automate a lot of their processes. And so the question is, how can you as a small business owner adapt this to work for your business? So one of the options is that there are a lot of grants and opportunities earmarked for small businesses. You need to think about all of the options when it comes to accessing capital, understanding all your options. So set aside time. I know that time is probably a more valuable resource to you than money if you're a small business owner. It's much more limited anyway. And so, but set aside mark time on your calendar every week, every day, maybe to start 30 minutes, an hour. Set aside that time to research what's available in your industry and location as far as grant opportunities. I read something about the Small Business Administration, certain contracts federal contracts that they give only to small businesses. And so that's why they keep track of all these statistics and who qualifies. And so you want to understand all of your options. It's not just big bank loans. There are options for lines of credit, something called micro loans, crowdfunding, angel investors. Just research what type of funding aligns with your business, your specific stage and needs, where you are in the process and where you need to be to reach your goals. And then also on the economies of scale side, don't underestimate your bargaining power with suppliers. I mean, it seems like you would think Walmart, and you do hear stories about how Walmart contracts with like PepsiCo and certain other brand names, and they're able to get it for, pennies on the dollar. They're able to get these products compared to what they sell it for. And they can do that because they buy in bulk. But don't underestimate your own bargaining power with suppliers. Vendors, many of them are willing to negotiate, especially if you've been a long-term customer. You can maybe commit to a larger volume at one time rather than several smaller orders.
If you have competitors that are going to be purchasing the same materials, I don't know if you can you bulk with your competitors and use that as a bargaining negotiation. It's just thinking outside of the box on some of these things. Strategic
partnerships will you want to
Maybe
definitely
that's a
have
bad
that.
idea,
No,
but
you
anyways,
definitely want to
all
have that in writing. That's something to think about.
I'm just thinking.
I love to say that you can take people's word for it, but I think are
Why
y'all
do you
going
love
to
to say
both
that?
put the money up front
Where you
and place the order, and then ensure that you're going to have a good process for splitting it? I definitely recommend you put all those things in writing, because
we're not
unless it's
we're not lawyers, and we're not here to.
Especially, I was going to say, unless it's like your sibling or your cousin, but I would say actually, especially if it's your sibling or your cousin, that you want to put those.
We're in 2025, dear. We got to get
things in writing.
Right.
All right. So you can also look for alternative sources. Go out for bid on you purchase all these widgets from a particular vendor. You've been with them for 50 years, 3 years, 6 months, whatever the number is, and you've always bought from them. And you go to them and you say, I've been a long-term customer. I want to increase my purchasing from you, or I want to continue my purchasing from you. What's the best price you can give me on these widgets? And then go to some of their other suppliers of those widgets and find out what the best price is that they can give. There is something to be said of loyalty, but also this is about your business, and you want to do the best by your business. Definitely want to do that in a way that upholds your integrity and all, but don't be afraid to ask for better terms is the bottom line. And sometimes the best cost saving isn't in cutting, it's in investing in efficiency. So if you can think about tools or look into tools that automate repetitive tasks, reduce your errors, optimize your inventory, and even simple tools like AI, which is very inexpensive these days, can help identify spending patterns or suggest cheaper alternatives for certain services. So consider those. All right. So the second thing that large enterprises have that make it hard to compete or make them allow them to be more successful or have positive cash flow is this idea of market influence and brand. It's not just their financial strategies. but also what they have as far as their market influence and brand. I've mentioned several brand names here that most people watching and listening probably have heard of before. It's because with large scale marketing budgets and extensive customer bases, these large enterprises typically have stronger brand recognition and market power, and they can attract new customers a lot more easily than small businesses can.
Let me say something too. If you want this transcript of what we're talking about now, I know it's a lot of information. I don't want to get caught up on too much information to throw at you, but just request that. Just send us a DM asking for this information. We'll gladly send this whole thing to you, all of this stuff, because what we want to do is we want you to get the overall picture of things. And if you need it printed out, then let us know, because I do know it's a lot going on, and we're trying to do this in less than an hour. So let's keep moving here.
Okay. So what small businesses can really emphasize in your marketing efforts is that you can have, as a small business, can have a more personal connection with customers in the local community. And big businesses usually can't do that. They're spread across the globe. They reach masses of people. There is no personal touch. There's no personal connection. They can feel very cold.
But you can use that. I've heard that even from a large influencer. Use that to your advantage. If you are the underdog or you are the small business,
absolutely,
that personal touch, that if you can promote that as as a selling point to your client there, your customer.
Yes, for sure. All right, number 3, we'll talk about talent and human resources. So large enterprises often have structured training. They have a clear path, a clear hierarchy for internal career advancement across different departments or global locations. They can afford to hire highly specialized professionals and managers with expertise in each function of the business. They usually have something like a board of directors, what we'll talk about here, chief this and chief that. Small business owners, though, should invest time and money into strategic partnerships to have similar effects on their business, similar impacts on the business. You might not have a board of directors. You might not have a chief executive officer and a chief operations officer, a chief information officer, and a chief financial officer. You may not have the CEO, COO, CIO, CFO in those roles specifically on paper, but you can absolutely build a board of directors for your small business through networking to form alliances with other business owners, through hiring relevant consulting firms and outsourcing those tasks outside of your business. So you can definitely build a board of directors either through creating partnerships and alliances with other businesses who provide complementary services.
Is this where we would talk about automation too with the AI? Because
absolutely.
There's a lot that you can do with technology and software. Don't skimp on your software, especially if you're talented people in a particular area of the business are requesting certain software. Be very hesitant to ignore them. In other words, that's something that's very important, because there's probably a reason. Now, I'm not saying you got to run and get everything they want, but do consider it. Do consider before you say no to that, because that might be a wise investment. So basically what we do for small businesses is essentially this function on a smaller base. Sometimes they call it virtual CFO or fractional CFO, or whatever. There's different ways. We call it a advisory service. So financial advisory services, essentially a good time to tell you that's what we do for your small business.
Yes.
So I'm gonna let you.
And for every one of those, you can look online and see where there are a fractional type chief officer who you can pay consulting fees in order to build your build your board of directors. You can also seek out through online forums, online communities and groups. I know a lot of the folks that we're talking to today, you're involved in LinkedIn groups, maybe in Facebook groups, or that are relevant to your business. And so creating those partnerships, finding accountability partners, investing in consulting where you can't hire full time, investing in technology. Actually, that's going to lead us directly into to number 4, which is that big enterprises, large enterprises tend to have a leg up when it comes to technology and innovation. So large budgets allow large enterprises to invest in and utilize cutting edge technology, and they are able to dedicate significant funds and resources to developing major innovations. And that might be a space where small businesses feel like they really suffer. They just don't have the money to invest in the equipment, the technology they need in order to move their product or service forward. But the truth is, you don't need every shiny new tool. You need the right tools. And so some tips for how to choose wisely is to, number 1, identify the problem before the solution. You need to know what the problem is, what you're trying to solve, and then look for the tool that solves that problem. And then another tip is to start simple and scale up. I mean, there's so many powerful tools out there that have basic, free tools or very low cost, basic versions. And that'll allow you time to start there, get familiar with it, see if it solves your problem. And then if you need to upgrade or expand the features when your business needs genuinely demand it, then you have that opportunity. But at least by then, you've been able to determine whether that's exactly what your business needs. And then also look to see if the tool is user friendly. If it's too complicated, you're not going to use it, and it's not going to be effective. And then consider whether you already have a tool that has something similar to a similar process or function that solves that problem, or that it works well with the tools that you already have. I mean, to have all these, they call them silos, to have these individual tools, all of these tools, and this does a couple things and this does a couple things, but they don't work together. We want to try to avoid that. There may be a tool out there that solves all the problems that your particular business has. There are so many options out there available. So know what the problem is that you're trying to solve, what it is in your business that's become a bottleneck or a real struggle, and find the tool that solves that. And so the last thing we'll talk about, and then we'll use the last 10 minutes or so to hear from y'all, is that large businesses tend to have the leg up or the advantage when it comes to structure and stability. So large enterprises usually have well-defined structured policies, procedures, and clear departmental hierarchies, and that leads to predictable, highly efficient operations, or it ought to, right? Sometimes large enterprises, we can get caught up in the red tape. And so that's what, they do have these defined processes and policies. They have this hierarchy of approval. It does tend to make things more efficient because there is a standard way of operating. And a lot of small businesses, you're just trying to survive the day, right? You're just trying to answer that customer's or meet that customer's needs. You're not necessarily thinking about the process you need to get there. You're not necessarily thinking about, okay, well, I did it this way yesterday, and trying to be consistent in the process. Maybe you're trying to, what is it, bespoke? Is that where it's kind of like customizing processes? And it makes it to where every single job is a job,
The more processes, procedures, operating systems you can put in place. That just means a sequence of things that can be done. If you do an input, you get an output, stepwise. The more of those you can put, and that's why a lot of people like to niche in things so that they can be more efficient. They can provide higher quality service and a better, more consistent product or service. Deliverable, whatever you want to call it, to their customer. less moving parts or more orderly moving parts, even if there's a lot of moving parts. They have a predictable sequence. You're not doing things bespoke, like she said, which is customized, different every time. If you're going to do that, you're really probably going to need to justify doing that with some kind of a luxurious branding with high prices, where you're the craftsman, and there's a place for that. There is a market for that if that's what you're doing, but make sure that's what you're doing. If you're doing it,
your pricing and the quality of your work reflects that.
Absolutely. So. And you can provide a higher quality of work for the right price and provide excellent customer service. If you have the right processes, procedures, structure, the systems involved in workflows, the flows of the work that are involved in operations. Okay, make things happen in orderly, timely, predictable, disciplined way. So
absolutely, yeah. But at the end of the day, you don't need a data science degree, which is a real thing.
No, I don't have any.
Or an organizational chart that's bigger than your family tree in order to make smart decisions. What you want to do is, like you said, build up to recording everything. Now that seems overwhelming at first.
It's a good point. The more you can document, the more, if you get an advisor in the situation, the more we have to work with. Or if you have an accountant that's going to be more forward thinking for you in your strategies now, since you know these things, in working towards your goals stepwise, taking actions that are going to move the needle, pull the right levers in your business, so to speak, to get you towards your goals. Then the more information that they have, the more data they have, the more numbers they have that kind of make sense, they can organize them and create you a dashboard to tell you which way your business is moving right now, what's healthy, what's not healthy. That's what we do, and what you need to do. But if you don't have any data, and I know the data can get overwhelming, I get that, and I get it. Sure. But if you got it and it's decently documented, at least you have it, and you can work with that. You can look in reverse and project forward, taking into account what's going on in the present and what's projected to happen.
Weren't you telling me the other day about someone that you listened to who spoke about how taking all your notes that you have all of this, you just documenting everything.
Yeah.
It might seem scattered. It's probably a little overwhelming. It's just pure data. What was this table of contents kind of thing?
Oh, you're talking about compendiums.
Okay,
and
was
stuff.
that
Those
the
are
word?
Interesting things.
Yes,
yeah, compendium. You can look them up.
These days, I mean, AI can do a lot of that. If you have access to an AI system,
sure.
It's like if you can electronically document everything that you can. It seems silly. It seems overwhelming. But the more information, that's the one thing about large enterprises, that they have data.
Yeah.
They have a lot of data.
She can speak to that with the business that
she's tracking every single detail. Now,
we talked about this the other night.
This board of directors here, the chief officers in the enterprise, they don't necessarily see all that vast amount of data.
What they
see, what they see is they see reporting based on that. They have dashboards. They have business intelligence systems. They use AI in a lot of instances to say, here's all this data. Just dump all the data into a reporting software of some sort and tell me something.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a chart. Give me a graph. Give me, high level details. So you really have to start with the down and dirty data, down in the details.
Yes.
Record everything and a lot of, if you're using a platform like Spotify or YouTube or even LinkedIn, it gives you some metrics and it gives you some measurements of views on your videos. If you're doing social media content, on your views on your posts,
everything's tracked. You just have to know where to go to see it.
Absolutely. So data exists in any kind of technology that you're already using or might use in the future. And so the more details, the better to create metrics and to identify pain points. I mean, start basic no, you go first. Sorry.
But this is where you can get lost in the numbers, like we said.
So
So
true.
we're talking
It's
about
so
business
true.
strategy and decision making without getting lost in the numbers. These guys at the top of these large organizations, they have this structure. Here's where it ties together. They have this structure of individuals that down here, they're looking at the fine details. And the further they go up the chain of command to these top executives, they're looking at more of the larger picture, grouping each of these individual categories as you go up the chain of command until you see a better general picture. They're getting like an impressionist view of what's going on, not necessarily looking at the individual pixels if you're talking about a picture, okay? So the pixels would be down here in a picture, and which are very important, and these have to be accurate in order to get an accurate impression up here. But by the time you're up here, this is where it all works together: the tech, the structure, the people, the talent, okay? And of course, if you don't have this, you don't have clients or customers, and then you don't know what you're using the money for anyways. Like, there's nothing to do. This is basically being determined by this, and it all works together, as you see. So,
well, what I'll just note for
did that make any sense?
Okay, it did to me.
Well, of course it does to you.
Let us know in the comments
that's where we want
if we need to
comments.
clarify.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
we can totally clarify.
And so, no, it does make sense. But the thing is that that's how large enterprises operate. Now, if we're speaking to small business owners, they may be the whole chain of command.
Okay.
Like, we have one decision maker for the whole business. And so applying these or those strategic alliances that we talked about with creating partnerships with complementary services, having an accountant and bookkeeper when it comes to the finances, coordinating with folks like us who offer advisory services in a particular area
marketing,
for your business.
Branding,
yes, absolutely. Partnering with the right people, you may be the whole chain of command, but you can outsource some of those chains, delegate, automate, use technology to your benefit. It might seem like a lot at first. Start small. Start with just a few metrics. Start just jotting down, using a calendar. If you're already using a calendar,
there's a lot of things here to do, right? It sounds like here, if there's one key critical component that you would inject into a small business, Tiffany, in order to help, you with me? In order to help a small business, medium business size owner start to put these pieces together and develop their goals, their plans, set their objectives to reach towards, okay? What would you say would be the first person that you would employ or ask to help you with this situation? If you weren't a financial person by nature or whatever, if you weren't into being in the numbers, is it important enough to have someone that can interpret the numbers, the data, all these metrics, this data, and to put it into clear actions?
Yes.
So how important is that?
No,
I mean,
that's
I'm
a great
taking
way
a lot
to
of time to ask you, how important is that?
No.
Because there's a lot going on, and we can sit and make this a 5-hour course on each individual topic, as you can see. The last thing we want to do is to overwhelm you. You can ask for this script, and we'll send you everything we just talked about so you can read it. But what's one thing that you can do today if you don't have a lot of extra time? Well, I'll tell you what, we have a Calendly link, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's an excellent point to wrap this up. I always think there's more time.
We're running out of time. We're just running out of time.
So we'll jump ahead. Like Kevin said, we can share any or all of this as a transcript.
We're an open book with this.
Yes. Yeah. And while you may see yourself in some of the things we've talked about, whether that was the story about Mark or Kara or Kevin, for that matter, you might see yourself in some of their stories, but or some of the questions or the comments that have come up, hopefully, in the course of this. But you likely have unique goals and challenges for your business. And that's why we created our CFO advisory services. And so something like that, now an accountant or a bookkeeper, they're going to keep you compliant. I mean, the IRS, it's a real thing. It's a real requirement to be compliant with the regulations, with the tax regulations and other, compliance with other regulations, depending on your kind of business.
Just put it.
But bottom line,
they're making sure that the things that happened in the past
all
are
your
correct.
paperwork
But
is
here's
reported.
what the problem with that is: relying on just your accountant if they're not focusing on your strategy, or just your bookkeeper if they're not focused on your forward strategy. Is this: they can do their job perfectly well. They can dot all of the I's, cross all the T's, and make sure that your taxes are done as perfectly as possible. Okay. And your business could still be failing. Now,
yeah, I guarantee
how
that
is
the
that?
50 and the 80% that we talked about who fail within 5 and 10 years, most of them probably had an accountant or a bookkeeper that they at least used, to file their taxes.
A competent one, an effective one,
yeah, absolutely,
doing their job. Now out of a job or looking for another job,
sure,
because their CEO, their owner, was not strategizing forward, was not taking into account what the numbers were telling them about the future and what, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah, absolutely. So partnering with like you said, a fractional virtual or CFO advisory service to serve as part of your board of directors, or learning. I mean, not to put it past any of our small business owners, if they don't already know how to translate the numbers from the financial statements into actions that tell you what to do next to continue having a growing and successful business. You can learn how to do that on your own. Partner with a CFO advisory service like ourselves, who can help you to do that. It's definitely a worth the investment to do that. So the idea is that we won't just give you a report. That's not what you need. You need the clarity. You don't need another financial statement. I mean, there's a few that are very important, but at the end of the day, if you don't know what it means, what it's telling you, what actions there are to take, then it's just going to be another piece of paper. You need someone to give you clarity and confidence to make the best decisions for your business. And so that's what CFO advisory services are for. It's meant to be a strategic partner, meant to free you up to focus on what you do best, and that's running your business. And so if that's something that you're interested in or that you would like to take, since we did use our whole hour here, there is a QR code in the corner of this video. If you're able to scan that, or you can go to our website, yourconsultingllc.com, click on the link there to schedule a 30-minute, we're calling it a discovery session with us. And we would love to, since we didn't leave you time here to discuss your specific questions and concerns, we definitely want you to reach out to us and to schedule some time for a call. We would absolutely love to talk to you. It's no obligation.
We're taking all the risk out of all of this for you. We're about value and impact, and we really want to help. So don't let money be an objection right now. Don't let there be any objection. If any of this resonates with you, the call is no obligation, and we fire ourselves if we don't get you the results that you expect, that we want. Okay. And we're selective about the people that we work with as well. So we're not just going to accept anybody, because we want to make sure that if we work with you, that you're willing to be advised. Okay. And the trust is there. The transparency is there. It's really about the relationship and being able to pivot and make changes as need be, as the need arises for your business to succeed. If we're working with you and your business is not taking a better course because of us working with you, well, it's either that we're not doing something right, or you're not adopting what we're recommending. And so either way, it reflects bad on us and it doesn't help you. So for us to not be a good fit doesn't make sense. Why drag somebody along trying to just to get another month out of them or something. That is not good for our reputation. It's not good for our mental health, and it's really not good for your the health of your business either. So don't worry about any of that. Sales tactics. We had to tell you what we're doing here, but if you have any questions, something that we didn't answer, maybe this wasn't what you expected, let us know. This is our first time doing this presentation. We're not trying to bait and switch. We're not trying to make this just about our services. We really want to give you some clear frameworks and context that you can work with in the future on your business to help it become more successful. And it really comes down to the cash flow. It does. Something that I didn't pay attention to, I didn't value early on, but I know now that it is not just two words that don't mean much in a business. It's very critical. Yeah. And so what you want to send us out of here?
Yeah, Tiffany? Absolutely. No, that's our time. Definitely appreciate you spending your lunch with us. Hopefully you got to, have your lunch and a bit of a show. And we do appreciate you taking the time to watch all the way through. I know we're up with our hour now. Please, please, please reach out to us. Like I said, that 30-minute call is not a sales pitch.
We're going to be asking you questions.
We want to know more about your business and your goals. And if there's something that we can give you some insight into, have some feedback, ask questions on our end, we want to do that. And maybe that 30 minutes is all you need. Or maybe from there, we can find a way to work together. Either way, I think it's a win-win for everyone. So.
And for you who asked me questions in the message in the DMs before this, go ahead and send me another message. If you want to request whatever you need to request, go to the Calendly link. I'm not ignoring you. I did message, I think I messaged everyone back that had messaged me. So if our conversation is still open, I'm going to go back and look at that. If we weren't able to cover it, which we weren't able to cover specific questions today, I know because of the time constraints, we can work with that on a call. It's probably better because we have a series of calls that a series of questions that we ask on calls, and to drill down and find out, which direction, course of action to take. So here we go. Let's wrap it up. Y'all have a wonderful day. Thank you. Stay bold, stay resolved, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks.